All right. We are back here at Song of the Day, coming to you from the Rock Cave. I'm your host, Mark Pierce. It is Sunday, wrapping up our Christmas music yesterday. Back to regular programming today. It's Slowdown Sunday. Today kind of fits that theme a little bit, I think, but we'll see. So, hope you all had a good Christmas, whatever it is that you were doing, traveling, if you were. And yeah, it was a good week, right? So today, Sunday, we're going back to this date in 1970. 1970. George Harrison's song, My Sweet Lord, goes to number one. And it starts its 4-week atop the number one in the U.S. This song was his first single after the breakup of the Beatles, the first single post-Beatles for any of them to go to number one. And it was off of his triple album, All Things Must Pass. A triple album. He had like 30 songs that he had kicking around. And on a side note, I was reading a book a few years ago, and it was basically presenting the argument that 1971 was the best year in rock and roll history. And it laid its case out based on all the records that were released in 1971. And the list is long, and it's just an interesting read. But they spent a lot of time talking about this song and George Harrison and how he was, after this, the biggest star on the planet because of this record. Not just in the UK or United States, but in the world. This song went to number one across the world. And I was shaking my head because I was like, what are they talking about? I'm like, I don't even know if I know this song, what they're talking about. And so after quite a while of reading about it, I was like, I got to go play this song. And I go play it, and I was like, oh, that's that song. I was familiar with the song, and I just didn't know, one, the name of it, really, and two, who sang it. I just wasn't on my radar. But this was a really big deal. And he wrote this song, and he had a label mate, which was Billy Preston. And at first when he was doing this writing, he was still in the Beatles. The Beatles were still together. So he gave this song to Billy Preston to do, and he did. He helped him work on it, and he did it and released it in 1970 on his own album, which in the end is a slightly different version than the one that George Harrison does. But then the Beatles break up, and George Harrison starts working on this record. Again, this is a triple album. He got the Wall of Sound, Phil Spector working here on there. He's got Eric Clapton playing on this song or on this record. Billy Preston is. Ringo Starr's on here. Badfinger, remember the group Badfinger? They're on here. And that song Badfinger, Day After Day, right? You always think that's you always hear that and you think it's Eric Clapton, right? Anyway, I digress. So this is out, right? That's a big deal. It's around the whole world. It's a song about Krishna, and it just resonates with so many people, and everyone loves it, and all's well that ends well, right? Just a great song, and that's it. But no, that's not it. The interesting part comes up now. Soon thereafter, first of all, it was the number one song of all of 1971, and it was the most bought record of 1971. But in February of 1971, a lawsuit is brought by someone against him for copyright infringement, saying that this song is an exact replica of the Ronnie Mac song, He's So Fine, as sung by the Chiffons. Remember that song, He's So Fine? So they're basically saying he ripped them off. And people started telling George Harrison that it sounded like that song. And he was like, wow. And so over time, he was like, yeah, I guess it does. I mean, I'd heard that song before, but, I wasn't thinking of that when I wrote this song. But he agreed, and he was kind of annoyed even at Ronnie Spector for Phil Spector for being like, didn't you notice that? You're like the king of all the girl groups. How come you didn't notice how close this is to this song? But this thing would go on forever. This lawsuit goes on forever and ever. It's a very famous lawsuit. But they had basically a country singer released his version of My Sweet Lord, and he put the Siobhan's music in there in between, kind of showcasing it. 1975, still going on. The Chiffons actually released their cover of My Sweet Lord. And this is just, the litigation goes on forever. At one point, like around the late 70s or so, they got this, the judge there is also happens to be a classical musician and composer of operas. How about that? But they have these people in court, and they're going through chord progression, scale, tempo, beat per minute. There's a 3-syllable title in the refrain. They got all these experts in there. And basically the judge says, yes, you subconsciously ripped off this, and you owe them all the royalties, or the majority of the royalties, to this record. And he's ordered to pay like 1.6 million, which is the judge's calculation of how much the record made in the United States, part of how much the album made, including how much his recent greatest hits made with that song on there. He had this formula for it all. And they settle, it's like 1981 or something, and they settle the UK version, but they've got this thing going on. But then his former manager, which owns Abco Industries, and Abco Industries, famous for having the Rolling Stones catalog for a long time, he buys, George Harrison's manager, former manager, buys the rights to He's So Fine. And with it, anything that goes, any kind of legal claims against it. And so then the judge says, well, now, you know what, you've got too much in the skin in the game here on both sides. And then George Harrison is then ordered to only pay $587,000, but he also gets the rights to He's So Fine. And then it just keeps, they can't agree. Like they can't agree. It goes on. It goes out through the 1990s. This is one of the longest lawsuits in the history of ever time, right? Of history of law. It was settled finally in 1998, March of 1998, after being started in 1971. Harrison got the rights to both songs in the United States and in the UK, and this Klein guy got the rest of the world rights to those songs. And that's how that story ends. So it kind of marred this song, because this was the huge story. But then, again, you go back to the song, and you have to go listen to them next to each other to really get it. And there's plenty of YouTube videos. I'll post one below that shows how they're similar they are. And so you can kind of see how that happened. But this song is a good song. And who knew it was so big around the world? I did not know. I guess I'd never really paid it much attention. But that is your song of the day. George Harrison. They said he was on par, equal with the rest of the Beatles as far as talent is concerned, based on this record. So, My Sweet Lord from 1970 is your song of the day. Check it out. Check out He's So Fine. Comment below. Have a good day. Looking forward to next week. And as usual, I'll catch you on the flip side.